Hey guys, I thought I would share this with you. I've just bought a DJI Hobby F330 flame wheel from quadcopters.co.uk. I've flown planes and helicopters fairly badly for the last few years, on and off. And before I bought this, I looked on YouTube for relevant F330 flame wheel videos. Couldn't really find that many, so I thought I'd just share my experience because it's been a little bit of a roller coaster in terms of learning how to set it up. The thing I also struggled with was I expected there not to be instructions in the box, and there weren't. Obviously, they were a download, but they were fairly sort of generic. It didn't show me where to put the controller and where the battery should mount and how to route the wiring and stuff. And I guess that's, for modelers that's normal, but I just thought I'd share my experience, show you how I've got it set up, where I've ended up mounting all the components. I've done a little bit of experimentation with settings and stuff, so I thought I'd share it with you, and hopefully it might be of some use to some of you out there. Anyway, take a look at my flame wheel. Right then, here she is. She's is it she or he? I don't know. I think it's a she. She's all finished now. This is how I've sort of ended up after a couple of weeks of messing around. I'll get it out of my case in a minute, which incidentally is a Pelly case, and it's a Pelly. What is it there? It's an M2300. It's sort of briefcase size. I wanted something that I could just chuck in the back of the car. I've got 5 lipos in here as well, so I've basically got an hour's worth of flight really, which is just fantastic because I keep it in the car. If I've got a spare hour, I'll get her out and have a bit of a fly around, and it's a great case. It just fits. Everything's a bit of a squeeze, but there's no interference. Everything just clears. I measured everything really carefully before I ordered it, to make sure it would fit properly. The next size up would allow me to leave the props on, but then the case becomes, it's sort of not briefcase size anymore, and it ends up being rather giant on the back seat of the car or something. So this is the size I went for, and it's worked out really well. It's really, really good. So I'll get it out of the box now and I'll show you exactly what I've done. Right, so this is it. This is how I've got mine set up. The first sounds ridiculous. The first thing when I started building it that confused me was which is the front and which is the back. And I guess what I discovered was there's no real sort of right and wrong. I've ended up having mine, and I think it's the way DJI intended it to be. I've got the red booms at the front, and the white at the back. I guess the only real sort of difference in terms of front and back is the way the base plate is. So logically in my head, when I built it, when I got it out of the box, I thought that would be front and that would be back in terms of how the plate is. The plate is sort of pointy, and you would expect it to be pointing forwards. And I've seen some videos online of flame wheels that have been built that way, but if you actually find pictures of DJIs like sort of from the factory, they're actually built this way. So the board goes long ways across like this, and then the way the battery mounts to this top board, the battery is then pointing forwards, backwards, and so on. So things I discovered when I built it, the NASA control box, which is it's a NASA Lite, which was the cheapest way of doing it for me. There's a little line. Imagine that's the NASA box. There's a little line on the NASA box, and the connection. It explains in the instructions, but the connections go at the front for the. Is it for the motors or the servo in? I can't remember. But there's a line which is slightly off center on the actual NASA control unit. That is the center line. So when you stick the control board, whatever it's called, the control box, to the bottom board, it's slightly off center to that way, I think. So it's slightly off center that way. So I guess the accelerometer and the gyro and stuff It needs to be as close to the centre of gravity as possible. So it's buried inside there, which you'll probably not be able to see it because there's so many wires, slightly off centre. And then there's the LED module which I put on, and I've mounted mine just on a bit of double-sided tape on a little piece of bent aluminium. The theory being that this bright LED, I suppose it wouldn't really matter, it's so bright you'd see it anyway, but I wanted it pointing towards the ground slightly, so when it was in the air I got a real clear view of it. Then I've got my I'm using Hi-Tech Aurora 9, so I've got my 9-channel Optima 9 receiver on this side, double-sided tape down, and then I've got some Hi-Tech telemetry on it for no other reason than it's fun really, and it's nice to see live telemetry on the transmitter when you're flying. So I've got an amp clamp and a voltage sensor, and I've also got a vario which is down this side. So there's a vario there which gives me, I suppose altitude is quite handy and quite fun to look at, and it gives it a climb and a descending rate, and the transmitter will beep at you depending on how quickly it's ascending or descending. The aerial mount, it came with a large aluminium, well, 2 of those basically, but what I've done with the end of my let's see if we can get it in the light. What I've done there is I've glued it into one of the arms just to make it a little bit neater, rather than using the great big aluminium plate that it came with. So the build really, the other thing I did was the speed controllers. I read online, and a couple of people mentioned that it was a bad idea to use cable ties really tightly around the speed controllers, because you can not straight away damage them, but you can put some stress on some of the components inside, and I think that can cause problems in the long run. So I've got my speed controllers stuck down with some fairly thick double-sided foam pads, and then I've got a velcro strap around them just for added security. And you can see I've got the aerials for my Optima 9 comes with 2 antennas, so I've got one that side. On one that side it was a good place to put them, just tucked underneath the velcro straps. The other thing I've done is I've put LEDs, which I'll show you on in a second, around the motors so I can fly at night, and then I do tend to get a little bit carried away, so I've got some red, some black epoxy there, just double secure, and then red epoxy on that side. Just makes it look really neat, and added security for the LED, because the LED strip was slightly deeper than the arm itself, and the arm's sort of slightly rounded, so it although it was 3M tape on the LEDs, it stuck fairly well. I was a bit worried it might come off, so I've gone overboard and I've put some epoxy round the bottom there. I think that's pretty much in terms of the sort of layout. Oh, the other thing probably worth mentioning, and you'll get it straight away probably, is the compass. You can see there's a little red pointer there, that's got a point forward, so obviously red is forward, white is behind. Right, let me switch it on for you, and I'll show you what it looks like all lit up. Okay, here she is with a battery plugged in. What I've done, which I love just because I don't think it serves a great deal of functional purpose, if you like, but I'm a bit of a child and I like this sort of thing, is I've got the LEDs on a little remote switch. I can't remember what the gadget is called. Well, I guess it's called a remote switch. It was about 10 quid off eBay. Plugs into one of the channels of the receiver, and it just allows you to be able to turn. I've got it plumbed into this channel on the tranny, so as I switch on here, I can turn my lights on and off, which I thought was quite cool. Actually, the other night I had the weirdest RC experience I've ever had. I was flying it really, really high, and then in the pitch black turning the lights off, which was bizarre, really bizarre, when you've sort of flown planes in the daylight. And then the fact that you could, in GPS hold mode, you can just put your transmitter down and it'll hold its position in the sky. It was very bizarre for me, because I've never had anything with GPS in my life. like that, and so all I could see in the very, very faint distance, I could just see the status LED just flashing. I couldn't even hear it, it was so far away. Very peculiar. So anyway, that's the lights on and off switch. I don't think there's anything more to explain really in terms of the build. I'll just show you my settings in the software now. There are a couple of peculiarities too with that, which I'll talk about in a second. Right, okay. The software, it probably took me almost as long to get the thing set up with the software as it did to physically build it. That's just because I'm probably don't get these things as quickly as some, but I'll just show you where I ended up and just make a few comments on some stuff. So this is the software running on my laptop. First thing you get to do is you get to decide, well, not to decide, you get to input the location of the GPS mount. So the mount here, basically it's the distance from the C of G. So the C of G is in the center on this, somewhere in the middle of these two boards, I've kind of guessed. And what you do is you enter, I don't know whether you can see it this well, but you enter, it's kind of self-explanatory when you read the instructions, but you enter the position of the GPS antenna. Now I have an issue with mine, and perhaps if some of you guys have got the answer to this, you might be able to shed some light on it. When you do and you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If you're new to this, you probably won't, and I've kind of discovered this, but it'll do a thing called, it's got a thing called failsafe. So if you switch your transmitter off, or I've actually got a switch set up on my transmitter as well, it sounds incredible, really. Well, it's not incredible because I'm sure you guys are well used to it, but to me it was incredible. It will actually fly home and land itself, which I found amazing. But I've had trouble with it when it comes into land itself. It'll look like it's going to land, and then it'll start doing this and start bouncing around, and it won't, and it'll sort of bounce 5 or 6, maybe even 10 times before it finally comes to a stop, and the motors switch off. And I read lots of forums and did loads of research online, and the main thing that people suggested was to change the settings for this GPS aerial. And I've tried all sorts of settings. I've even sort of gone from a positive to a negative. I've tried them on 0, and to be honest, although I've got it set, these numbers here represent in physical terms where that is. I've just left the numbers like that, but even if I put these numbers to 0, it doesn't seem to make that much difference to the way that it flies. I don't know quite whether that's right or not. But anyway, moving on. Just now, there's better people explaining this online than I ever could. So I'm not going to go into any detail. Motor mixer, didn't do anything with that. Transmitter calibration. There's a really good video online that somebody's done about setting this up, and I'll try and put a link somehow in this video to it. But basically you calibrate your transmitter, and then you can set up this little bar at the bottom here. You can set up various different, where are we? So here we've got these 3 positions on this 3-position switch. Change. And you're just adjusting endpoints on that channel in your transmitter, so it's fairly simple to do. I did struggle with mine actually. And it's just me not paying attention. But when I first started the software and went to calibrate my transmitter, I didn't have it set to. It's not very in focus, I'm afraid. I didn't. The receiver type, I think it was on PPM, not traditional, and I. I struggled and struggled, and I watched lots of YouTube videos, and I was swearing at it, saying this is crap, why won't you work? And it was just operator error on my part. I'd not ticked the right box, so that all worked quite well. The autopilot settings, what did I do with this? I played around with some of these gains, didn't seem to make that much difference. I've got a gain set on this slider here, a vertical gain that's adjustable. I was trying to see, as I move this up and down, this vertical gain here goes up and down. I was trying to get it to stop this bouncing on landing thing with that, but that didn't seem to make a great deal of difference. And then this home lock, course lock and off, I've got that set on this switch here. So as I move the switch, that moves again. That's just pretty simple really, just changing endpoints on that particular channel. Gimbal control, I'm actually quite excited, and my next video is going to be, I've just bought a Aris 2000 gimbal from China, which has just arrived in its box, which is actually what's just inspired me to make this video, because I'm going to do an unboxing next of that gimbal, give you my thoughts on that. And then voltage at the bottom here, this voltage warning thing, it's all pretty self-explanatory really. The LED status light, which is green now because I've got the USB cable plugged in, you can set, that goes berserk and flashes red really quickly when the voltage level drops. It's quite good. There's two settings. The first level, what am I trying to say? You can set two levels. So when it's you can have a load level when it's under load, and not under load, which is quite cool. So it'll flash amber at these two voltages. So if you go full throttle, as the battery starts to get a little bit low, at absolute full throttle, the voltage will just hit this lower level and it'll flash amber. So you know, I've sort of found I've probably got 3 or 4 minutes flight left, because it's only just dipping to that at absolutely full chat, which I found that quite helpful actually in terms of flying it round. And then the other thing I discovered, and again, if anybody's got any comments on this, I've read loads of stuff online and I can't seem to get to the bottom of it. Very occasionally when I fly it, I'll do the compass calibration and all that drama. I'll take off in GPS hold mode and it wants to drift either one way or the other, and I have to, you know, just have to keep correcting it. And then after maybe a couple of minutes in the sky, and this is after getting a good GPS lock, so I've got a flashing green light and everything's fine. After a couple of minutes in the sky, it seems to settle itself down. And what I've discovered is, in the software here, if you go into tools, which is here, I apologise for this crappy filming of mine, there's a, where are we? Ooh, IMU calibration. Let's see. So, and then you can go, actually it's doing it now. If you look at the gyroscope, it's not at 0, it's jumping around a little bit, and you can check IMU status here. Actually it says no need for calibration, calibration procedure can be skipped. Okay, but what I found is, if I, ooh, hang on a minute, I think there's something else in here too. I thought there was an advanced thing, maybe not. So if I calibrate it like that, and then I go and take off and fly it, it doesn't do its drift thing. It seems to, this problem seems to introduce itself when it's been sat around for a while. So if anybody's got any comments on that, I'd really appreciate it, because I've banged my head against the wall with that. So the two things are the bouncing when it's landing in autopilot mode and this drifting business. I can't seem to fix it. I've got the latest firmware installed as far as I know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope if you've just bought one of these, this might be of some help to you. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching.